Nicki Collen, Baylor women's basketball head coach, with us on 365 Sports after a gut-wrenching ending against USC up in Portland, Oregon. A team made a hell of a run. She joins us now with Craig Smoke, Paul Catalina, and I'm David Smoke on 365 Sports. How are your emotions a couple of days later?
Not good yet, truthfully. I think the idea, I feel like we should be preparing to play UConn right now, and knowing that game is going to go on tonight. I'll be curious to watch that game. I just, it was a weird feeling after it. Every year the emotions have been really different. When we lost, I felt like we ran into the wrong team at the wrong time. Our first year, last year, I thought we tapped out. I thought the team that we had to make the round of 32 with our youth was I was proud of them and happy with what we had done. And I just thought, a couple things go a little bit differently. I thought we could, I actually thought we should win that game against USC. So, if I'd have coached a little better, if we'd have made a couple more shots, if we, there's all those what ifs, but proud of the way we battled. Felt like we didn't get much of a whistle all night long. So, and it's hard to watch it back and feel like that ball should have been ours with 28.5 seconds to go. Because you run that play down 2 instead of down 4, and you're in a totally different situation. So, but we definitely, we're not going to get the whistle in that game for sure.
Coach, a lot's been made of the court you guys were playing on and how strange that was. Of course, as a coach, you're not, ever thinking about those things. Does it speak to a larger issue that the NCAA still has? I mean, we remember the debacle of a couple years ago where they don't have as much attention to detail for your game as they do the men's game?
I'm not going to make it more than it is. I don't know that we can say this would never happen in the men's game, or, I was trying to get people to understand, with 8 teams at one site, we got 1 hour on the court we played Saturday. We got 1 hour on the court on Friday. And you're kind of getting in the first 10 minutes, you got media there. And so we really just used it like a shoot around, and it wasn't, and you're not standing in those moments. You're not, sometimes you walk around looking for dead spots, and I still think like a point guard that way, but you're not even thinking about the lines are wrong, because you're not looking at the court in totality. You're working at one end and you're getting shots up, you're working at the other end. And when we went on that court, we didn't even do any 5-on-5. We just really treated it like a shoot around, and then went to an off-site venue. We only had 30 minutes on the court on Saturday for shoot around, and we just chose not to take it. So, I think it's not that hard. I think when you have that many teams, 8 teams practice on it for 2 days, and then teams play games, and then for it to not be really noticed until the 5th game. There was 2 games Friday and 2 games Saturday. So, disappointing that it happened. Obviously, it was one of those things where, at least in our sport, both teams, you play both ways. So, it's kind of like equity and a mistake. But, I'd like to believe that we do a better job going forward, making sure that things are specced out right. I mean, that's Portland, and I think Portland is a city that, if you're going to host that many teams and you're maybe want to add a WNBA team, kind of how you do anything can be perceived as how you do everything.
Coach, reaching the Sweet 16 is a big deal always. When it comes to this 23-24 squad, I know that's not the ultimate goal, but it is quite the accomplishment. What are you going to remember most about this group, and how hard is this process now postseason of having to say some goodbyes?
Yeah, unique group. I mean, it really, we really felt like in the summer as we started to practice, that we had something special, that we could have something special if if we got them to all kind of buy in to it really being about team. And, like I certainly didn't know when, we played Utah the second game of the season. Like that was kind of the first moment that I thought, wow, we really could be good. And a lot of it had been because we just showed up so big in that moment, and took a team that, didn't play at full strength for the rest of the year after our game. I just thought we played with a lot of poise, even opening conference play at Texas. I think those were the moments. And I think then you stumble a little bit like most teams do, and we had to make change, and we had to get them to believe in change again. And we saw players like fight through slumps and then pull out of slumps. And I think the fun part was seeing kind of what Jada Walker could bring late in the season. It was seeing, the way Bella defended Juju Watkins. It was seeing, kind of this opportunity for maturation for the future, and what it can be. And certainly, everyone always assumes like everyone will be back. And I think these days you can't assume anything. With the portal the way it is, you do your best to treat kids right and put them in position to be successful. And I'd like to believe we'll have the core of our team back, and this is not any kind of me giving anyone a premonition that something's getting ready to happen or there's going to be bad news, because it's not that at all. I just think that, I'm pretty sure Kelly Harper was blindsided at Tennessee today. So sometimes you don't know what the future is going to bring. And I don't say that like I think I'm going to get fired tomorrow either. So I feel like my examples are really terrible right now.
Oh, good.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it gives you this, I think the game made me, like, I saw moments from Bugs, like in the third quarter where I thought, okay, Bugs, like, this is what we need all the time. We need that player that's like, oh, you're not guarding me. I'm going to take one dribble and eat the space up and shoot my jump shot. So I saw like really, really good things from the team and what we can do in the future. But I also think, I feel like, it would have been fun to get 2 years out of Dre, when you talk about departing seniors, like where we could have gotten her, I think with a second year, if she would have, really understood like what we needed and when to pop and when to roll sometimes. And, really be that versatile five and be able to kind of then be pushed down to the four when we add some size and some experience, and more of a true center. And I think Asia kind of had to deal with, this year was a challenge for Asia because he had never not been the go-to player. 3 years at Missouri, she was the go-to player. 3 games at Baylor, she was our go-to player, and then she gets hurt. And it just was a process back for her, and you saw moments of it, but you never saw the like, I'm going to dominate every possession. Asia that even our fans saw when we played, against her when she was at Missouri. And that's how sometimes injuries, they take their toll, and it takes time for that player to get, kind of their bounce back. And I think that's the thing for her. She just lost a little bit of her bounce.
Nicki, I started covering women's basketball in the late 70s because I went to a couple of schools that were really good at the time, including Stephen F. Austin with Sue Gunner. And I've seen the history of the game. And there have been great players along the way: Nancy Lieberman, Cheryl Miller, Diana Taurasi, Brittany Griner. And the game now with Caitlin Clark and company getting more attention than ever before. But with that becomes like a microscope. And with that comes stories and more things that are out there for everyone to have opinions about. And then you have to lose a game. And then you find out about a story that's not even about your program that takes a pot shot at your program. And you were very emotional about it and talked about being offended. How did you find out about that? And where are you today because of what was said?
It's really interesting because I'll say, it's amazing how I think the majority of the time I articulate pretty well, like I don't think that I'm misinterpreted very often. I obviously wear my heart on my sleeve, and I'm not afraid to share my thoughts. Sometimes, like, I probably share too much. But I think that it was, everyone was anticipating this article, right? I mean, you couldn't not anticipate it based on even Coach Mulkey's press conference. And so, I knew it was coming out, and I had just been that paragraph screenshotted. Now, it comes out the day we're playing in the Sweet 16. My point of not reading it was not that I was like purposely not reading the article. I just really don't know the ins and outs, other than everyone said it was a pretty watered down version of what people were expecting, but that paragraph about, our program withering and not being top tier, that was sent to me, that entire paragraph. And so when I've had people attack me on Twitter, like, oh, you're going to talk about something, you're going to be offended by something that you didn't read. Okay, I didn't articulate that very well, because I read very clearly what it said about Baylor today. And certainly I have every right to be offended by that. When you've had the success that we've had over a 3-year period, there's a lot of coaches that never achieve that in their entire career. And so as much as I want this program to be the elite of the elite and to be competing for championships, national championships every year, to say we're not top tier and release it on a day that we're playing in the Sweet 16 and have accomplished what we have, 7 top 25 wins, like ranked as high as 4th in the country, like we're not withering, So I think it was a little bit about being defensive as much as I think I was offended, but it was about being defensive for who we are and what we stand for and how we go about what we do. And this idea that we're not still an elite program is very wrong, And so I think in that moment, I had no intention of going up there. And then it was like, Nicole asked me that question, and it like kind of just spilled out, because it was like, let's go prove, like we even talked about it before the game, and so I wasn't planning on talking about we're not withering and we're blooming. It just kind of was one of those things that came out, because that's what I really feel like is happening. I really feel like we have a chance to bloom, and for people to see us play our way and have 17 assists. And, I mean, what USC is awesome. And I have a ton of respect for them. They run a lot of isolation basketball. Like, we're setting screens, we're moving the ball. I think when we're at our best, we're really fun to watch. We're really pretty to watch. And I know people are going to pay to watch Juju, and she's an unbelievable basketball player. But I think that we're going to continue to sign great basketball players at Baylor, and we're going to play a style that is going to continue to keep us, at an elite level. So I don't know if that was a better articulation of what I was trying to say in that press conference, because I think most people understood it, but clearly there are those that always want to find fault with what you say, when I think I had every right to be offended by kind of, it was almost like a side remark.
This segment with Nicki Collen, Baylor women's basketball coach, brought to you by Richard Carr Motors, the Baylor Bear Hotline. Paul?
Yeah, Coach, I read every word of the article, and I remember when I came across that part, it just felt like an unnecessary stray, on, a comparison to something in it. It was like, well, I don't think that's completely, I said, I knew it wasn't completely fair, a comparison, because that would mean you guys aren't making the tournament, doing, better each year that you've been there. Yeah, it was kind of weird to catch that in there when the article wasn't even about you guys, but I thought, like, the way that you guys used it and the way that you did was the right way, because look, this as a coach, like, anything that can put that chip on your shoulder for a game, even if it's temporary, can be fuel. So I thought you handled it the right way.
Well, and this is the way I look at, and my point was, feel free to come and see what we're doing and why we're doing it. Like, if this was truly a 2-year project, which I have no idea whether this was a 2-year project in terms of then, this whole idea of, okay, let's let's continue to talk about this. We're going to talk about women's basketball, but we're going to talk about, like, come see what it looks like. Come see if it's really Withering as we, like, open the development center and, you know, continue to get, you know, big time recruits in here and sell a lot of tickets to games. And you know what? Like, I'm never going to be Kim Mulkey. I'm not. And she had incredible success here. And I've never tried to downplay that. I know that if I consistently compare myself to her, then I'm going to struggle with just life. You know, if I feel like I'm constantly like, I have to be authentically me and move and shake the way I shake and ultimately, like, trust that Mac and Linda have, like, believe in me and believe in our vision and believe, you know, that we're doing it, you know, the right way for us, you know, not that it wasn't the right way before, but the right way for us. And so, yeah, and I still haven't read the article. So I just, you know, like, it's just one of those things that, for me, like, when you live in this world, you know, this is just part of it, you know, and you're right. Like, I think you wish your team was extrinsically, you know, was more intrinsically motivated. Like, you don't need these things, but ultimately we all do operate sometimes, with a little more spirit, you know, when there is that external motivation.
Nicki, one more question from me, and appreciate your time. I know family's in town. Hope you had a great Easter weekend, despite obviously the loss in Portland. But South Carolina's unbeaten. NC State is having a great run with both men and women. They just knocked out Vic Schaefer in a really good UT team that you know about. You have that game tonight, the showdown of the national championship rematch with Caitlin Clark, LSU, Angel Reese, etc. And then there's that UConn and Juju Watkins playing tonight. Is it at its best peak right now? And is women's basketball finally getting, in your opinion, what it deserved as far as the attention?
You know, I think our game has always been great, and I think people are starting to see it. And if it takes social media, you know, if it takes a little bit of controversy, if it takes student athletes that are a little bit bigger personalities, I think, you know, I'd like to believe. I think people that think that Iowa is going to cease to be good when Caitlin Clark leaves are crazy. That means they really only are following Caitlin Clark, and she's phenomenal. She is. But I think Iowa was good before Caitlin Clark, and they'll be good after Caitlin Clark. Will Iowa be sellout games at Wisconsin and at Purdue? I don't know, you know, because I do think that people buy tickets for Caitlin Clark, just like people used to buy tickets to watch Brittany Griner because she was different and she was special. And people are going to buy tickets to watch Juju and, you know, the resurrection in some ways of USC this year because of her being there. You know, and then they went on to sign the #1 ranked recruiting class coming in. So it's kind of like they have this ability to ride this wave based on, you know, Lindsay Gottlieb doing such a good job to get Juju. But I think you're starting to, like, follow players. And I think the more players are highlighted, the more our game grows, the more competitive it seems. And so I'd like to believe we're not having a moment. You know, it's just kind of like we're creating this momentum that, you know, our game has, you know, I don't spend a lot of time comparing our game to the men's game. You know, it's no different than when I was in the W. You really can't compare it to the NBA. It's different. It's a different entity. And, you know, we're going to have some crossover fans and we're going to have some that aren't, you know, but ultimately, you know, it's just good to see really the momentum of our game, the games being on ABC, the ratings skyrocketing. I mean, they say tonight's LSU Iowa game will, like, break every ratings record, which is incredible. I think that goes towards, you know, the ability of women's basketball to make money, you know, and create our own separate contracts and to not ride coattails. And so I think it's a really cool time. And I hope this is momentum going forward. I hope that even our fans that are watching these games and recognizing, like, you know, hey, we went to Virginia Tech and, like, you couldn't hear the person next to you was so loud. It's like that's where we're headed. The number of sellouts in the NCAA tournament. Like we've got to continue to grow our crowd and foster where 3,000 isn't a good crowd, 5,000 isn't a good crowd. It's not a great crowd until every seat is filled, because I think that's kind of the quality of basketball that we're going to continue to play, and that I think our league is going to play. And when you look at Arizona making the tournament and Colorado making the Sweet 16, and Utah making the round of 32, but without Gonzaga making like 9 threes in a row, they may be advanced. So we're adding, yes, we're losing Texas and OU, but we're adding 4 really good schools and 3 that are just, have been really good the last few years in terms of on the women's side. So I think our league's going to continue to get better.
I want to close it out with this. You mentioned, you responded about the 3-point line, and of course some people, they don't know sense of humor. They don't know you well enough. I thought it was funny, though, when you responded, by the way, most people don't know me, but I was being sarcastic. I'll use an appropriate emoji to show tone in the future.
Yes. I mean, it's almost you can't. I mean, how many times have we as humans sent a text message that gets misinterpreted, or you don't read it? And like, I am, for better or for worse, like my defense mechanism is sarcasm. Like, it can be really good, it can be really bad. Like, but when our players have to learn really quickly, like, be sarcastic. Yes, that is my defense mechanism. I may not yell and scream a lot. I may not, but it's kind of that whole idea. And anyone who knows me knows, like, I'm not even someone that, that there are coaches and players for that matter that are like, we have to shoot on our main court. When we played at Farrell, I would always rather be in our practice gym. Always. Like, it's not like, well, we got to get the depth perception right. The lights are different. I'm like, hey, if you work on your shot and you get your hand at the rim and you shoot it straight, like, you just need repetition. It's not where the repetition is. Like, I don't care if you're shooting outside against the elements. Like, you train yourself to shoot the basketball. It's not like, okay, there's glass back there. Now, there's different if the sun's shining in your eyes. But, so like, I'm very much someone that's like not, and I got that a little bit, I think, from Patino when he was at Louisville. He would never, ever practice at Freedom Hall. It was always in the practice gym. He didn't even have shoot around in Freedom Hall. And, he was like one of the best coaches I'd ever been around. So I'm thinking to myself, is it that big a deal? So to me, in that moment, it was like, that was my point. Oh, that's why, like almost joking, that's why we shot the ball so much better in the second half. Because in the first half, we were getting good shots. We were getting open shots. And, now I'm looking at them going, well, maybe they were long. Maybe we did shoot long, even though Jan was like, I think I was just too excited, like I think I shot it long because, so yeah, no, it was true why I thought, like people aren't paying attention to the court when you show up. You're just showing up and you're not, you don't think you have to check those things. It's like, you're not measuring to see if the free throw line's exactly 15 feet. Like, you don't do those things when you show up at a venue. So, but yeah, I don't think that's why. I think we just came out more motivated. I thought our rhythm was better. I thought we got shots in the flow. We got one more. We got, like we were just playing our game, and we were just playing it better than we were in the first half. So I think that's why we made shots. We settled down. We kind of had control of what we were doing and why we're doing it. But yeah, people that were taking it, oh, okay, like that's me making excuses. It's like, no, I'm not making excuses. Like, so yeah. I don't know. Social media is what it is. We have to live in that space ultimately because it's how young people function and there's probably more parents of recruits on Twitter than there are kids. The kids are on TikTok and they're on Instagram, but ultimately, like, I think it's, we have to live in that space, but we also have to take it with a grain of salt.
Nikki, I've enjoyed the access throughout the year. We enjoyed the time today. Thanks for being a part of the show, and go get some players. I know you have already as well, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Awesome. Yep. Thanks, guys.
Nicki Collen, Baylor women's basketball coach with us. following the weekend, the 3-point line, the loss, and really she's great as someone who can talk about the game because she's seen it at all the various levels from the WNBA to what she's doing now.
You know what I think is happening?